Right, define terms. So we're going to use the definitions of points, lines, and planes to come up, or we're going to use the descriptions of points, lines, and planes to come up with definitions for segments, rays, opposite rays, and angles. So all the definitions, all the terms we define in the future will use previously defined geometry terms to describe them. All right, so a segment is part of a line. So if we have a line here, so let's call it line AB. Right, a line extends forever in two opposite directions. Right? An infinite amount of points on the line, and it extends forever in two opposite directions. A segment is going to have endpoints, which means it's going to stop at 2 points that are on the line. So if we take away all the points that go off in either direction, we're left with a segment. All right, so segment AB is simply a part of the line that stops at 2 of the points that are on the line. And we call those points the endpoints. Okay, so it consists of the 2 endpoints and then all of the points in the middle. And again, just like the line, even though the line has an infinite amount of points and we're taking some of those points away, a segment is still going to have an infinite amount of points because we can still put a point between each of these, right? We can still put a point C here. We can still put a point D here, right? And we can still go in between 2 other points and put another point. So the segment still has an infinite amount of points, just like the line does. It just doesn't go on forever in 2 opposite directions. Okay, so the notation here then is you have to use the 2 endpoints. So when we named a line, you could use any 2 points on the line. For a segment, you can't use any 2 points on the segment. You have to use the 2 endpoints. So our 2 endpoints here are A and B. So we would call it segment AB. And notice when we named a line, we put the 2 arrows because it was going forever in 2 opposite directions. This was a line. For the segment, we don't have those arrows. We just simply have the bar over top representing it going from A to B. So then this was a segment. Okay, so part of a line. Segment is part of a line. A ray is part of a line. It's going to have one endpoint, and then it's going to go off forever in one direction. Okay. All right, so we have part of a line with one endpoint going off forever in one direction. Right. So to name the ray, we use the one endpoint, and then any other point on that ray. So in this case, we can use B, and it starts at A and then goes through B. Right? If we went the other way, right? The endpoint is B, so we got to start with B, and then we're going through A. So it's got to look like this. We got to switch the letters. The endpoint has to come first, and the arrow has to be over the point where you're going through, the point that you're going through forever in that direction. So ray AB, and this would be ray BA. Okay, and again, note the symbol differences here. For the line, you have the arrows on both sides of your symbol for your notation when you're naming it. For the segment, you don't have any arrows, and for the ray, you have one arrow, and that arrow is over the letter that's not the endpoint, the letter that you're going through to infinity. Okay. Opposite rays are simply 2 rays that have the same endpoint, okay, that form a line. Basically, opposite rays form a straight angle or a straight line. So if we have an endpoint here, A, and we have ray AB, Okay, and then you have another point going this way. Let's call it C. Okay, then ray A, B, right? This would be ray A, B. Is going to be an opposite ray with ray AC. Okay, so opposite rays form a line. Okay, in their example, they had ray TS and ray TU. And again, note how T is the first letter in the notation because T is the endpoint of both rays. Right, T is the endpoint of the green ray here, and T is the endpoint of the blue ray, so it's got to come first, and then the arrow is over the S and the U. Okay. The last word then we have here is an angle. So an angle is formed by two rays with the same endpoint. So if we notice, our definition of opposite ray was essentially the same thing, except it had to form a straight line. So if you have an angle that forms a straight line, then you also have opposite rays. But if that angle does not form a straight line, it's still an angle, but it's just not a pair of opposite rays. So an angle, we simply have two rays here. So our rays here would be QR, right? So you have QR, ray QR, right? And then you also have ray QP. Okay, so our angle here is formed by those two rays that share the same endpoint. That endpoint is Q, and we call that the vertex. All right, so Q is the vertex. That is the endpoint of the two rays that form the angle. Okay, to name the angle, the most safe way to do this, because there's situations where you're going to be able to call this angle 2 and situations where you can call it angle Q, but the best way to name it is using the 3 points. So angle PQR, okay, or you could also name it angle, you put the angle symbol, this little alligator mouth shape, and then we could have done PQR as they did, or you can do RQP, but the Q has to be in the middle. The vertex has to be in the middle. Okay, you can't name it angle RPQ because RPQ would look like this. Right, this would be angle RPQ down here. Okay, so to name it, the vertex needs to be in the middle.